Hello, Dr. Mike here for a look at the Windows Registry for my CIS-2808 Introduction to Computer Forensics course. This is topic 7, and it is the Windows Registry, and there is a chapter 4 section in our book about the registry. It's a short chapter, short section in this chapter, so we'll take a look as a quick review of the registry, and we'll actually look at where some evidence items can be found and really how it works when you examine the registry. So again, there's a section on the registry in our textbook here, and I'm still going to go and cover what this sort of goes into detail. This does go into more detail here about keynote IDs and write times and some other really more detailed structure. I'm not going to go through that here because really, in reality, all tools, open source, commercial tools that deal with Windows, an image of a Windows operating system, has ways to read the registry for you. It can be very complex and very in-depth, but the chapter is great to look at to understand how it works. If you look at it from the node ID and the values laid on hexadecimal. And we'll do is we'll take a look at using a tool called Fred, and we'll examine a registry file too. So first off here, registry itself, quick review, where does it reside? And under our Windows System 32 config, we have these files here, SAM security, software, and so on. And there's one file called the ntuser.dat file that resides in the user's home directory. It's usually a hidden file, so you can see in this example here, I've checked hidden items on. You can see there's a ntuser.dat, and it's under user's mic directory here in this VM I have. So that file itself, along with the collection of these files, gives us the registry itself. So I'll just do a quick overview of the registry. If you were to open it in a regedit, registry editor called regedit on all Windows systems, we have this structure right here. We have basically what's called root keys. We have 5 levels of root keys, and then they themselves have subkeys, and then they have lower level subkeys, selected keys, and we have values for those. Those values have data of different types. So we'll take a look at those in a second here. So we have basically these content, these major root keys here. We have basically classes root, current user, local machine user, and current config. So along with ntuser.dat, we can show associations between files. We can see apps used and under root, types of files, and so on. Current user, this is going to be our current computer environment for any logged in user. Pretty important. It's a good one. You can see all the different users for a system and if they've ever logged in and when. So that would be something definitely to capture for evidence. Local machine, all aspects of computer operation, device drivers, hardwares, some good stuff inside there, detected hardwares, and so on. Users themselves, all user accounts, so HK users, again, probably a really well of information there. And current config, information about current configuration of hardware, and so on. So a lot of information inside here. And we'll take a peek a little deeper in. All right, so again, you can see the locations here. These are the files. We have SAM security and how they tie to the registry locations. So again, you could grab these files. Again, you would get them from a read-only image of the original suspect's drive. And again, there's tons of tools to do this. You don't need to go in and actually grab these files, but you know where they're at, you know where they're located, you know how they sort of tie together. This is really showing what BCD is, default. Here you can see SAM security, software, and system. And again, this is ntuser.dat. That's going to have the current user and HK users, so that's a pretty important one to get. Now again, we saw here before, these have keys, and these keys have values, value names, and they have values data. So it's like a key, it's like a value data pair here with each name. These data types come across as different types. We have binary, D-word, expanded SZ, multi-SZ, and so on. Again, this is really just a review. You can see a lot of times there are some things human readable, SZ and multi-SZ, human readable text. Single text, including a variable, and then of course we have D-word. We have actually some binary data that's going to come across and can be viewed in a hex editor. Again, as you saw in the chapter, there's other stuff buried down in the registry, like write times and so on, that we don't see, we might not see here in a reg edit, but we can get this from a registry tool. So let's take a look at that. So here I have Kane open and running, and Kane has, this is a NetLab series, and it has some registry files that have been extracted for your labs, of course. And I've actually went ahead and used this, and I've opened a Hive. So you can see here we have int_user.dats. So these have been extracted from a different tool. There's RegRipper and so on that can extract these files separately. These are hard to copy if the system's running, so a lot of times they're locked by the system. So just keep that in mind. So a lot of times you'll use some sort of third party, either commercial or open source tool to do this. So these have been done already. And I've opened up the system config. So we have system open. You can see here, system32 config our system1. And in here we have an example on control set. So information about our system itself can be pulled out of this. So we look at our services, for example. There's a lot of stuff here. And even doing this manually can be very daunting. Even with an open source tool like this or any commercial tool, there's a lot of stuff in the registry. So you can see where commercial tools, open source tools that actually go in and will pick out the information you need. Definitely going to be very handy. But at least you can see now the chain from the high-level open source tool, how it goes down, reads these files, and how can it pull information out about our system. Let's look at parameters here, TCP/IP parameters, and then we can look at interfaces. We can see all the interfaces. There we go. In this case, we have an active interface. Again, there's a value here, which might not be of any value here, but there is a last mod time. So we can see a date time was last modified. But more important though is, we can see it's extracted here is our IP address, subnet mask, the default gateway. So this is definitely important information if you need to sort of prove this computer was running on this IP address, because it maybe links to ISP logs or other logs. This registry entry will do that for you. So again, you can see down here, this one shows you the hex values, a bunch of time data and so on, and it shows you the actual key itself and the value. So a reg edit might be able to see this too on a running copy of a system, so just keep that in mind. So that's one item right there, again, information about the system itself. Also in our control set, after services, we have this enumerations here. We can look at our USB storage, and we can see any drives that have been attached or removed from this computer. This is definitely really good if someone has plugged in a USB drive, thumb drive, a USB external drive, what it was, any identifiers for it, its file system type, and so on. So good information here about this, and we can barrel down here and it gets really in depth. So in this case, and this is pulled up in the higher level with the tree here, we see it's a SanDisk Cruiser USB device. So again, we get that from the higher level key itself besides the sub key. So but again, you can dig down and really get inside there. So really good stuff here. I mean, you can see right away there's some great evidence here. Think of this as registry diving, as digging into the past. Information about what's happened between this and the other upcoming lecture about log files for both Linux and Windows. Logs, and in this case registry for Windows, and the log system and event viewers really do help paint a timeline of activity on our suspect system. So let's go and open up into user.dat. So we're going to open the Hive here, and we have 3: admin, informant, and temporary. This must be temporary user. Let's go and open informant. It's a good name, right? So under informant, again, we can look at things like software. So we can see last opened files. We can see things like Internet Explorer. So Microsoft. So if I go to Internet Explorer, we can dig into things like typed URLs. There we go. We can see when someone's went to certain web pages. This is for Internet Explorer. Again, we're going to look at a separate lesson on web browser history. But let you know, though, browser history not only is, at least for Internet Explorer, is not only in its browser history, we also see it here in the registry. So the registry is touched by a lot of things. But more important, we can go down into our software. Just going to write tree here. So Microsoft, we want Windows software. Windows. And I think we want current version. And Explorer. And we get recent items. Recent docs. There we go. So again, we got tools beyond this tool. Again, Fred is a more direct registry viewing tool. Again, there's a lot of these tools out there. Textbook will talk about some. But we can actually see where these tools, high-level tools, forensic tool suites, both open source and commercial, can dig in and find and pick out recent docs open. So again, very important to understand this, coming back off the other parts of this week's topics, which of course is evidence, be able to demonstrate and talk about how evidence is found. So understanding how a tool goes into the registry, a commercial tool, open source tool goes in and finds the list of last open documents. How can you prove how that works? It could be part of a demonstrative evidence. It could be something you might need to do expert testimony to a jury. So, but in case, we can see here definitely a wealth of information here. We can look at docs that are open in this case, and we can see things like secret project proposal.docx. So again, there's information buried in here in the hex, and there are times and dates, which might not be definitely 2097. A little bit in the future. You see the Unix date timestamp though here. But more important though is we can get a list of the files, JPEG files, which is a koala JPEG, some tulips and so on, penguins, PowerPoint files, UTXs and so on. So great way to look at recent documents buried down in our ntuser.dat. So again, ntuser.dat we saw was separate from the main system32 config directory. So a very important item to pull is this ntuser.dat. So again, there's a wealth of information buried inside the registry. This lab for this topic, currently at the time of this recording, this lab will have you go into actually the system and use this tool. So I'm not going to demonstrate this tool for you. You will do some lab steps and answer questions based using this tool. But I do want to show you some areas that the lab might not show you. And one of those, of course, being this, recent docs, system information, and so on, and how you can view it. So again, the text might talk about reg scans or fresponse. There are other tools to read and extract the registry. So registry, again, it is the past. It is the timeline of activity for our Windows suspect system, and now you understand sort of where those files are at, their formats, and how a tool can go in and look at those files and pull out information that could be handy for collection of evidence. Again, a little short video here. Hope this is very helpful. Thank you.